Welcome back to Pharmacy Talks with D. I'm Dutrochet and Djoko, commonly known as Djoko. We've been talking recently about the opioid crisis that is currently ravaging our country. But today we're going to shift gears a little bit and talk about a rather unusual public health topic. Tick bites. Yes, you heard me right. Tick bites and tick-borne illnesses. I know no one wants to talk about ticks because they're creepy, they're gross looking, and they spread disease. Well, that's exactly the reason why you should pay attention to them. In the United States, ticks are responsible for spreading potentially life-threatening disease, including neurological disease and ones that can actually cause death. The most known one is Lyme disease, and according to the CDC, it is the most commonly reported vector-borne illness in the United States. And while the rate has steadily increased since the 1990s, thousands of Lyme disease still go unreported. So when it comes to ticks, ignorance is the opposite of bliss. Start paying attention on what ticks looks like, where they camp out, how to prevent tick bites, and what to do if one latches onto you. Developing an action plan now is important and critical to prevent you from having issues in the future. To help us do that, we are fortunate and delighted today to have with us Judith Ryan. Judith Ryan is the Danvers public nurse, and she will guide us into some of the steps that we can take to help us avoid those issues. Welcome to Pharmacy Talks with D, Judith.
Thank you, Dee. It's
Thank you.
nice to be here.
Thank you. We're really delighted. So as a public health nurse, I know prevention is always your first line of defense.
Correct.
You always want to tackle issues before they actually become issues. So as far as tick bites are concerned, what are some of the basic steps that people watching at home can take to protect themselves? And I know there's no vaccines for humans against tick bites or tick-borne illnesses. There might be one for dogs, but what are some of the steps that people can take?
There's a few that individuals can take. The first one is just the basic knowledge that when you walk outside, doesn't matter where you are, where you live, ticks can be anywhere. Anywhere rodents are, plan on ticks. Before even walking out, you want to plan your attire. You want to have long sleeve shirts, long pants, socks. Best thing to do is tuck depending on, if you're going on a hike, going out in nature, tuck the pants into the socks.
Okay.
You also want to maybe think about wearing clothing that has been treated with permethrin. Permethrin, what the guidelines are, say 0.5% should be the percentage of it on the clothing. The other things that you want to do is wear light clothing, light colored clothing.
Okay.
That way they'll also be very easily detected if there's ticks on them. And also, you mentioned dogs and pets. People need to understand that ticks are on dogs, cats, horses, any kind of animals, basically. Okay. And a lot of times they can transfer the ticks, so they'll come in the house with the tick on them, and then the tick can crawl on the individual, the person. So people just need to keep in mind that things, and even the CDC website will also say that even backpacks, if kids throw their backpacks on the ground when they go pick them up, whether it's a backpack or a soccer bag, check those prior to bringing them in the house.
Okay.
Once an individual does go outside, when they come in, regardless of how long they've been outside, once they come in the house, they do want to do a complete body check. Okay. If you look at the graphic that we got off of the website, the CDC website, that will show the various areas that ticks like to go on.
Okay.
They like warm and dark areas,
Yes.
so they'll go under armpits, behind ears. They will go in groins, behind necks, between fingers, between toes. So those are all good places to be looking. One of the best things for people to do after they've been outside is if they can take a shower immediately,
Yes.
that's one of the best things to
okay.
do. You know, or within a certain amount of time, because it takes a little while for the tick to latch.
Yes.
And being in the shower, you can take a loofah or whatever and brush
Make
them
sure
off of
brush
your
them off.
skin.
That's
Yes.
right. So those are some of the things you can do. Looking at the graphic, I see some spots where people should be looking at to make sure that, you know, if there's a tick there, they can remove it before it latches on. But do you have to do anything special with the clothing that you were wearing when you were outside? Do you just put it in the normal washing machine, or what do you do?
One of the best things to do is put it in your dryer, turn it on high heat for at least 10 minutes. And that is usually enough to kill a tick.
Perfect. Perfect. Hopefully this is this is really useful information, and hopefully people at home will start taking some of these basic steps to protect themselves against tick bites. Now, like I said, public health nurses are always about prevention. And assuming somebody did everything that they could, but they still found a tick on them when they got inside the house. So what do they do? So if you took the proper steps and then you get in, or you find one on your pet and you find one on yourself, what are you supposed to do?
Don't panic, first of all. The best thing to do once you find the tick, you want to remove it as quickly as possible. The longer it is on your body, the the better opportunity they are going to have to latch on, and we'll talk a little bit more about this in a little bit. But so when you find a tick, the first thing you want to do is get a pair of tweezers and pull the tick off. We've got another graphic that shows when you get pointy tweezers, get to the very head, you know, right where your skin and that tick meet, and you want to pull it straight up. You want to be able to get the head of the tick off. And that's the best way to do it, is by getting pointy tweezers, getting right at your skin and pulling upward. Don't pull it at an angle, because you could break it off more easily. So you're going to pull it upward and do it that way. Stay away from the, you know, folk tales and those. Do not pour nail polish remover or put Vaseline or turpentine. Don't use any of those. Don't use a match. It's not even guaranteed that it would take the tick off. And more importantly, it could very easily harm the individual. So tweezers, pointy tweezers are the best. If you know you've got an unsteady hand, then have somebody else help you out. But the sooner you get that tick off, the better off you're going to be.
Perfect. I'm glad to know that I shouldn't panic if I
Don't
found
panic.
one on me, and that removing it early enough could actually prevent you from developing some of those tick-borne illnesses. Because we always get worried and say, well, if I already have it on, maybe I already have the disease. But if you remove it early enough, you get a very high chance that you will not get anything.
Correct. And reason being, the ticks, it takes anywhere from a couple of hours to 24 hours for them to actually latch on. So you've got some time, you got some wiggle room, but you know, it is not always 100%. So that's why you want to do it as soon as possible. But usually a couple of hours to 24 hours before it does latch on. Once it latches on, that's when it starts to feed on you. And this is kind of the gross part and creepy part.
It's
but
still important that we talk about it.
And They latch on obviously with their mouth, so it's their head that goes into your skin. And then they start emitting a little bit of saliva, and that's when the fluids just start getting, transferring in between the tick and you.
Okay.
It does stay on your body. That tick will stay on your body until it's done feeding or until you take it off. So, but from the time that it does latch on, that's when it can start transferring diseases. But keep in mind, there are hundreds. There's actually in the world over 800 species of ticks.
Wow.
A lot less in the United States itself. But out of that, hundreds, there's only a few species that actually transmit the disease. Okay. And fun little fact, only the females bite.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't know
not that you're ever going to be able to tell which the difference between the female and the male tick.
So,
but anyway.
Just do the inspection and remove it as soon as you can.
Remove it as soon as you can.
You don't have to worry about what species that was.
Right.
Okay, perfect. I also heard that ticks can transmit several diseases at once.
Yes.
Is that true?
People can ticks can be co-infected with diseases. So the different tick-borne diseases that we're talking about are your typical Lyme that everybody knows about.
Yes.
And then there are some that a lot of people do not know about: babesiosis, anaplasmosis. There's another one that is a Japanese-born one that we actually have had here in Danvers, so I don't even remember, about 3 or 4 years ago. That is, and I might ruin the name of it, but some people call it Miyamotoi, and then another pronunciation which I'm not sure of. But anyway, that's a Japanese one. There is Rocky Mountain spotted fever as well, which we have had that here as well. So a tick can be co-infected with the various diseases, and then they can transfer that to another individual. And I just want to make a clarification. Most of these tick-borne diseases are from deer ticks.
Okay.
There are some that are transmitted through a dog tick, and the Rocky Mountain spotted fever is a dog tick.
One.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Dog ticks are a little bit bigger than deer ticks.
As far as the size of
as
the tick
far as
itself.
the size goes. And just since we're talking about size of ticks, it's really difficult sometimes to realize that you have a tick on you. The ticks, the nymph ones, they can actually be as small as a poppy seed.
Wow.
So if you look at somebody that fair skin like me, and I've got a lot of freckles, sometimes it's difficult to tell the difference between a freckle and a tick. So sometimes it can be tough.
So you definitely want to pay attention and take that shower as soon as you get back in the house.
Correct.
Perfect. That's good to know. And speaking of those tick-borne illnesses, what are some of the symptoms? What should people be looking for?
Once you remove a tick, it does not mean that, first and foremost, doesn't mean that you're automatically infected. Okay?
That's good to know.
But if you did know that you had a tick on you and it had latched on, one of the things that you want to be doing is just monitoring yourself and being aware of different signs and symptoms, which could include basically flu-like symptoms. You could get a fever, chills, you could get kind of achy. A lot of physicians, not so much now, but in the past, a patient would go see the physician, and the physicians would think that they've got the flu. And then they started doing, tick-borne disease panels and testing and all that stuff, and they found out that, hey, they've got, these different diseases. So fever, chills, achiness. Some can be more severe, some, dizziness and other neurological symptoms that they can have. Some can affect their motor skills if it has progressed. Some can actually be fatal. There are some of these diseases that can be fatal. So once you do start noticing signs and symptoms, it would be important to go to your physician, let them know that you had a tick on you, you removed it, and they would then probably be doing a tick panel. One thing I do want to say though is some people back in the day, years ago, people would take the tick and send it to a state lab or a lab. They don't recommend doing that anymore. They don't do that anymore. So don't be.
So when you
don't
remove
package
it,
up your
just
tick.
don't package your tick
Don't
up and
package
send
it.
it over.
No, the way to get rid of a tick actually is you can flush it down the toilet. You could actually put it in a little cup with alcohol, rubbing alcohol.
Oh, okay.
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 But flushing it down the toilet's
It's
sufficient.
fine.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. And when now, if you see a tick on you that had latch, and you start developing symptoms, I suppose it doesn't happen right away, right? There's an incubation period. It takes a few days or weeks. I don't know.
Yeah, it's usually not going to happen in the next day or so.
Okay.
It usually takes about 2 weeks to start developing any kinds of symptoms. Sometimes it can take longer. And you know, the problem with some of these symptoms is that you can chalk it up to other illnesses.
Exactly.
So you kind of ignore it for a little while, and then they might go away, and then they come back even more severely.
Severe.
Yes, yes. So the key is, if you did in fact find a tick on your body and you start having those symptoms, that's when you need to go and see your physician and have that conversation with them. You know, a lot of times, unfortunately, we don't know we had a tick on us.
Okay.
So that makes it a little bit tough. But if you're an individual that's outside a lot, and it doesn't have to be camping or hiking or anything like that, you know, it can be in your own backyard.
Exactly.
So if you're the type of person who is outside a lot, then that's a conversation that you're going to want to have with your physician and say, I didn't find a tick, but you know, I'm outside an awful lot.
Maybe we can look at that tick-borne illness panel.
Right. And one of the other things that a lot of people think is going to happen is they're going to get a bullseye, that rash, that bullseye rash. That is typical for Lyme disease, but it's not for other diseases, for any of these other diseases. So if you are expecting to see a bullseye, don't.
Okay, so you can actually get that tick-borne illness and not have the bullseye in the rash.
Yep. That's more, again, more typical for Lyme disease, but the other ones won't have a bullseye. Some have a rash, some don't have a rash.
Okay.
So it can be tough. But I think a lot of physicians nowadays are starting to think more about the tick-borne diseases, and they're doing testing more than, you know, even 5 and 10 years ago.
Oh, that's good. That's good. That's important because we encourage people all the time to spend, you know, to be outdoor in the nature. So we want to be on the look and make sure that in the event someone has one of these, we can catch it early.
Correct.
Because there are definitely treatment for them.
There are. Most definitely, antibiotics.
Yes.
The oral route is very simply takes it away most of the time.
Perfect. Now, I heard about, I know, you know, most people spend a lot of time out in the summer, in the spring, but there are also people who spend the time out in the winter. Now, I suppose in the winter you don't have to worry about ticks, right?
Wrong.
Do we? Oh, really? So you can have a tick bite in the winter?
You most certainly can, and I'm glad you brought that up because that is a myth. A lot of people think that there are no ticks around, I'm not going to get a tick bite in the winter time, but they most definitely are out in the winter time. You don't see them very often because it's usually snow covered, and they're not as active in the winter time, but it can still happen. So you still want to protect yourself. You know, I've gone on a hike in the wintertime in the, you know, wherever it is, and the path doesn't have a lot of snow on it, but it's got the grass on it, and that's where the ticks are, is they wait, kind of lie in wait for somebody to walk by while they're sitting on a blade of grass.
Wow.
They don't fall from trees. They don't fly.
Oh, they don't fly.
They do
That's
not
another
fly.
Myth because
That is another myth.
I thought ticks would fly.
Nope.
Okay.
They do not. They crawl, and they will crawl as they're waiting for somebody or an animal to walk by a blade of grass, and that's how they crawl onto somebody or somebody brushes against it. So yes, in the wintertime, it is definitely a possibility that so when you're out in the wintertime and you come in after maybe a hike or just whatever you're doing outside, if there's, you know, when you're in an area that there was no snow, you definitely want to be checking for ticks.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's news to me. Thank you very much. So, and now I'm sure, we just briefly talk about some of the basic things people can do to protect themselves against tick-borne illnesses. Now, if someone wanted more information, is there a place where they can go to get more information about tick-borne illnesses and ways to protect themselves?
Yes,
Okay.
there is.
Good.
The CDC has a great website. It's cdc.gov/tick.
Okay.
And that is one of the best websites there is for all kinds of information. It gives you preventative measures. It tells you, gives you a tutorial on how to remove a tick. And it just gives you all the information about the different diseases and what you're looking for. You know, some of the other things that you'll find on the website are, you know, we talked about permethrin.
Yes.
And other sprays, bug sprays will work with if you have DEET in it, but there are some people that cannot use that. There are infants that you can't put it on.
Yes.
So there's some stipulations. There are some natural oils that can be used. So those are some of the things that you can actually find on the website.
Oh, good.
So that's a great resource. Some of the other websites, you know, I would go on to some of the hospital websites. They've got some good information, but the starting point would be the CDC website. Yes.
And you spoke of permethrin as one of the things people can put on their clothes
Yes.
or on themselves.
You'd put it on your clothing.
Okay.
You put it on their clothing. You can buy clothing. Some of the sporting stores have these already treated, so pre-treated, but there's also a spray that you can use to treat your own clothing.
So those permethrin spray or whatever, you can get them at the local stores
Usually
or pharmacies?
I don't know if they have it in a pharmacy, but I definitely know that they have them you can get it online, but you could also get them at a sporting goods store.
Oh, perfect. Perfect. That's good to know. Well, Judith, I can't thank you enough for all this information. I hope that the people at home did take notes, like I was taking my own notes here, because these are things we take for granted. We don't pay much attention to them. We think, like we said earlier, they're ghosts, they're creepy. Nobody wants to talk about them. But if you take these basic steps, you can definitely protect yourself and protect your family against some of these tick-borne illnesses. So I can't thank you enough for this. And for you at home, thank you for watching and looking forward to continuing similar conversations with you next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dee.
Thank you.